Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Tracer Burnout. I'm Dan.
I'm Roger.
And Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
This is our Christmas special. It'll be the last episode of 2024.
Our first year.
Yes. Almost a complete calendar year.
Very close. Yep. That's right.
Not entirely.
Yep.
And we've got something really cool for you guys. Something that I have slaved over the last couple of days. But before we get started with that, you have a historical story you would like to
I do. So something I like to observe every year. It's a history nerd thing between Dan and myself, but every Christmas there's actually a YouTube it's a commercial of all things that we'll put in the show link at the bottom. But in 1914, at the beginning of World War I, a spontaneous event took place that's known as the Christmas Truce. And what it was on the Western Front, the trench warfare is now in place at this time. It didn't start that way, but the trenches have now set in.
Ugh, grueling stuff.
It was horrible. And kind of a long story short, the Germans and the Brits, that's who was predominantly in the area, had a Christmas truce. And so the soldiers all came out of their trenches and for a few hours had all the hostilities had ended. And there's a lot of legend behind this. Some of it's apocryphal, some of it's factual. We're not going to get into all that, but the bottom line is they played some soccer, they shared some chocolates and some treats, and just stopped, killing each other for a few hours and actually sang some songs, and it's very heartwarming. There's a British company called Sainsbury that has a really amazing commercial that they made many years ago that kind of shows what this could have looked like. So we'll put the link in the show notes, but I think it's important that we recognize each other's humanity during the Christmas season. Yeah,
I agree.
Yeah,
I agree. Now, this is a show for veterans and veterans' families and service members all across the world. And every year, the commander-in-chief and others put out their statement to the troops. Their special Christmas or holiday message to the troops. And neither one of us are presidential.
I was going to ask if you were the commander-in-chief in this situation.
Oh, things would be so much different. But I figured that I would read a statement to the troops from past years. So, going back to World War II now.
Okay.
Patton's Third Army was bogged down by foul weather, and they were running low on supplies, and it was cold, and it was wet. So, and the rain just wouldn't stop. And on December 8th, he went to his chaplain. I think the last name was O'Neill. And Patton was a weird dude. He had a lot of, shall we call them eccentricities?
Proclivities?
Yes. But he was extremely devout. And so he went to his chaplain and he said, "Chaplain, I need a prayer to make this rain stop." And so the chaplain sat down and wrote a prayer. And so I will read that to you. "Almighty and most merciful Father, we humbly beseech thee of thy great goodness to restrain these immoderate rains with which we contend. Grant us fair weather for battle. Graciously hearken to us as soldiers who call upon thee, that armed with thy power we may advance from victory to victory. Crush the oppression and wickedness of our enemies and establish thy justice among men and nations. Amen."
Amen indeed.
So Patton made that prayer, and he had it printed on note cards. And on the opposite side of the card was his message to the troops. "To each officer and soldier in the 3rd United States Army, I wish a Merry Christmas. I have full confidence in your courage, devotion to duty, and skill in battle. We march in our might to complete victory. May God's blessing rest upon each of you this Christmas Day." He had 250,000 of those printed and passed out to each member of the Third Army.
Yeah, I mean, that would be a significant undertaking to do in today's modern, with the technology and everything we have, having that done in the 1940s. Wow.
Yeah. But the rain did stop, and the Third Army continued on.
So, I mean, it was around this time that the Battle of the Bulge was going on.
Yep.
So that just to kind of...
Yep, early December.
Yeah, to kind of give that a historical timeline. And so this is also another one of my favorite December, World War II, same thing, Battle of the Bulge. That was when the Third Reich provided not a diplomat, but an emissary that went to one of the American commanders and said, you're totally surrounded, and it's best if you surrender, and you do all that. And do you remember what the one-word response?
Nuts.
Yeah. So you got to love the American fighting spirit.
There's a, oh gosh, I can't remember who said it. I believe it was a Marine in Vietnam who, while they were completely surrounded by Vietnamese forces, and one of the commander or somebody asked the sergeant major or something, and was like, "What are we going to do? We're completely surrounded." And he's like, "No, we've got them surrounded from the inside."
That's why they're devil dogs.
I don't have that completely correct, but that's one of my favorites, is we have them surrounded from the inside.
Excellent.
But, all right, one last thing before we get started, and that's some announcements.
Okay.
So, first and foremost, we realize that this is, Thanksgiving special, Chris Johnston's episode, and now the Christmas special. That is because Thanksgiving was later in the year this year than it typically is, but
we're also self-indulgent.
Yes,
so.
And fear not, because we have some banked episodes already ready for
the new year.
Mm-hmm. But this also gives us then some time to enjoy our own families and friends for the holidays. So it's a little bit of a few weeks reprieve.
Sure.
For us to really enjoy the holidays.
Or retreat, if you will. Yeah.
Now, we also have something else coming up. We're going to be hitting the road again.
Yeah, it's been a while. Yeah.
But we're going to be hitting the road again for a few episodes. So those will start rolling out probably February, March.
That sounds right. Yeah.
But, it'll be good to be on the road again.
Yeah.
On the road again.
Indeed. Hopefully we won't screw up the cameras like we did last time. we were brand new when we did it.
We have learned a lot.
We have
in the last 12 months, 10 months.
10 months. Yeah.
Ish, 9 months maybe. Okay.
All right.
So, away we go. Christmas is full of traditions. And traditions are different depending on where you are. So, because veterans, service members, their families are scattered all across the globe, and that's not changing anytime soon, I figured that I would put something together so that if you are stationed abroad, or a veteran who retired abroad, or maybe you're now a government contractor abroad, whatever the case is, you'll be able to look out for some specific traditions and some cuisine.
So the audience knows Dan did all of this, and I'm learning about this in real time with all of you. So
yes. Yeah. Yes. Despite his pestering and want of total control, I said, no, I've got this.
Total control versus being utterly clueless. Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes.
So, because we all started here in the States, there is a tradition in the States for ugly
Christmas started in the States. Is that what you're saying?
No, the ugly Christmas sweater tradition probably started in the States.
Not in the smelly stables in the Middle East. Okay.
No. Okay. The ugly Christmas sweater. So I told Roger, I gave him very few directives about what to prepare for here, but one of them was go out and find the ugliest Christmas sweater that you can, and we will exchange gifts, because regardless of where you are in the world, exchanging gifts is part of the tradition. So, do you want to go first or me?
Yeah, I'll go first. So
Okay.
I'm going to reach down. So for those who are just listening, I'm reaching down and grabbing a nice-sized gift bag to hand to Mr. Baker here.
It is
quite festive. It is shaped kind of lengthwise.
Like
it has Santa's belt buckle on it, and it has the nice red and green tissue paper in it, because my doting wife makes sure that I have the things that I need to be successful. Otherwise, I would have just probably put it in a food line bag.
I absolutely knew that this was not. All right.
So Dan is now rustling through the tissue paper, and he's pulling out.
And by the color alone, I know what it is.
He's reaching out and grabbing the greatest Christmas sweater.
And it is. I don't. What is this? Pea soup green?
It's baby barf green. Is what my dad would call it.
Yes, but it is the face of the Grinch.
And the whole thing is just green. It's one color green.
It is vilely green.
Well, Dan, because you have termites in your smile and you have garlic in your soul, I figured nobody deserves this more than you. I wouldn't touch you with a 39.5-foot pole.
And it's super soft, too. I'll actually wear this thing. Now, it's your turn.
Oh, boy. Oh, boy.
This. I saw this. And
Dan is handing me a significantly smaller sized bag.
This had me laughing for about the rest of the day when I got it for you.
As did that one. Miss Morgan and I picked that out for you.
So I've also handed Roger a gift bag.
Significantly smaller.
Significantly smaller.
Okay, let's see. We have some festive colors here. All right. Does it matter which I pull out first?
No, it doesn't.
Okay, all right. Okay, so we have, it is indeed a sweater. Is it a llama or an alpaca?
I don't know.
Okay. So we have a South American mammal of some sort with a beer pocket in it, in the front. Okay, put your drink in my pocket. I don't know what kind of message you're sending here.
It is.
Okay.
It is green and red and white and covered in glitter with a felt pocket for your drink, which is a very large pocket. That might actually be...
Well, I was going to ask you, can I fit a 40 in there?
You probably can.
Okay. I mean, I'm asking for a friend. Okay. All right, so we have our hideous festive sweaters. What happens next, Mr. Baker?
So now we are going to put them on. So we'll be right back.
Before we go, I have to address my undershirt, which again, let me get on camera here. So for those who are just listening, it's a white T-shirt with kind of red. It looks like it's handwritten on there, and it is a replica of the white undershirt that one of the terrorists in Die Hard was wearing when they came down the elevator. And it says, "Now I have a machine gun, ho, ho, ho."
Indeed.
The best Christmas movie. All right. We'll be right back.
We'll be right back. All right. We are back, and we are wearing our lovely Christmas sweaters.
You're a foul one, Mr. Grinch.
You're just going to keep that up, aren't you?
It's not going to stop.
Okay. So now that we have exchanged gifts...
I can't take you seriously. Okay.
Think back to when you were a kid. What is a gift that you got for Christmas, like Christmas morning gift, that made you that you remember most? That gave you a super fond memory.
Yeah. Man, I mean, there's a whole bunch that are jumping out at me. So, yeah, probably one of the most memorable Christmases I had. I must have been 8 or 9 years old, and it was the first Nintendo, the NES, the Nintendo Entertainment System. So it was the NES with a couple games. Of course, it came with Mario and Duck Hunt.
Of course.
Top Gun, which was one of the most infuriatingly difficult games ever made.
Because you couldn't land the plane.
I had that game for 10 years, and I think I landed the jet twice. I may or may not have thrown the remotes out of rage a few times, too.
You were certainly not alone in that.
Yeah. But it also came, it didn't come with, but my parents Santa provided Zelda, The Legend of Zelda, which is one of the best games ever made, and it had the ability to save. It's the first game that I had anyway. I'm sure there may have been a game that preceded it, but it was the first one I ever had that would save itself, which was that was a big thing back then.
Kids today don't know how good they have.
Yeah, so Nintendo with Zelda, and I associate Christmas with that. But it's interesting. Years later, I talked to my mom and my sister about that, and they also associated Christmas with those two things, with me playing them, because they could still hear the silly little music in the other room with
the dog
with
laughing
little
at you.
Roger Lee sitting in a beanbag chair playing doo, 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 doo. And yeah, so my mom and sister also associate it, and yeah, so
That's a good memory.
yeah, that's a good one. So how about you?
About the same age, I had a lot of Legos growing up. And I really loved the pirate Legos when they started coming out. So I had a bunch of like pirate Lego stuff. But it was all like smaller little, boxes and stuff, or like whatever my mom would find at a yard sale or whatever. But I was probably 9 or 10 maybe. And I got for Christmas the Royal Navy, I guess, ship. And it was the biggest set that I had ever gotten. And to me it was huge. I think I've still got
Those things are expensive too, by the way.
I think I've got a picture of that Christmas somewhere with me holding it up, being all super happy and goofy looking. That hasn't changed.
Yes, goofy looking.
But I loved that thing. Like I don't even think I waited for, any of the rest of the presents to be opened and stuff. I think I started putting it together like right there. And on the back of the flip cover, it had a bunch of different things that you could build with the same pieces.
Right.
I mean, it didn't have the instructions for it, but man, that was amazing. I loved that thing. And I mean, I used to love getting G.I. Joes for birthdays and Christmas and stuff. But that ship, that ridiculous little Lego ship. I shouldn't say little. I mean, to me, it was like as long as my arm. But that was awesome.
Yeah.
That was awesome.
So I was also very much into Legos, as you know. I was more into the castle stuff, but later on, before I kind of grew out of it, I got into the pirate stuff late. And because I wanted to combine them together, I would take all the flintlock, pistols and rifles away from the pirates, just so they were medieval pirates. That's how that goes.
Well, I mean, they did have swashbuckling sabers,
right?
And stuff. But
yeah, Legos were great.
Oh, to be a kid again.
Yes.
But all right. So our journey here in America is up.
Okay.
And now we're going international.
Does it Americas? Because this is clearly Latin America, but yes.
Maybe not. It could be somewhere else.
I can't, for our audience, I can't verify whether this is made of alpaca or llama wool.
There was a llama
presumably
farm
in
in
China.
upstate New York when I was at Fort Drum. So, who knows? Regardless, we are now taking our international journey to Australia.
Let's do it.
So, in Australia, if you are stationed there, vacationing there, or one of those lucky guys and gals in the Marine Corps that are guarding embassies, that's got to be one of the sweetest jobs.
It is.
I mean, ridiculous.
Yeah.
But anyway, if you are a veteran or a service member abroad in Australia, you're going to hear people talking about Chrissy around this time of year. And that is like their colloquialism for Christmas, not some drug-addicted, ill-fated character on The Sopranos. But Chrissy is Christmas. And then the day after Christmas is Boxing
Day, yeah.
Which they celebrate, which originally started...
Which is a Commonwealth thing.
For, letting your servants have the day off because, they've been waiting on you hand and foot for the entire year.
Yes.
But...
And it's boxing because you're providing them a box, presumably with a present inside of it. Has nothing to do with pugilism that I know of.
But while you are in Australia, or New Zealand for that matter, apparently, you might find yourself having some pavlova. I think I'm pronouncing that correctly. Pavlova?
Sounds Russian.
But
Niet.
I made us, and this is the first time that I have... Let me preface this. I have made all of these dishes by myself. This is the first time I've ever made them. And I found all the recipes on the internet. I hope I got them right. There's no guarantee of that. But in the words of renowned, yet deceased, Stoic philosopher, international man of mystery, and legendary dragon slayer Abraham Lincoln, the internet will never lie to you. So,
I didn't see where this was going. Okay. All right.
obviously, if I mess this up, then the default is all mine. So, pavlova is a meringue that you bake in the oven.
So we're eating dessert first?
Well, some places said that it was a dessert, and then some places said that it was like a throughout the day kind of snack thing leading up to the meal. So
those are called diabetics, Dan.
Well, I don't know.
Okay.
But it's a meringue covered in whipped cream and topped with various fruits and nuts and things like that. And
okay, I'm watching Dan hack through this thing.
And I'm not going to lie to you, I think that I did mess up the meringue. The recipe said that if I left it in the oven to slowly cool, then it would have like a marshmallowy kind of texture to it.
I mean,
but based on me cutting into it, it doesn't feel that way.
I'm not an expert, but my guess is you shouldn't have to use your body weight to cut through meringue.
But it is topped with various fruits and things. So I put on blackberries and strawberries.
Good choice.
Kiwis.
Good choice. Oh, the kiwis. I see what you did there.
That's honestly just because I like kiwis. But here's a plate for you.
Thank you.
As well as a fork. So I've cut us off some pieces there. And feel free to...
All right, so
yes.
Am I supposed to chew right into the microphone?
Sure, why not?
All right. I wish I could have been a fly on the wall watching you do all this baking yesterday in your little apron.
I do have an apron.
I bet you were just adorable.
I do have an apron, but I don't think I've ever actually worn it. So, let's see. Describe for the listening audience what you've got going on there.
Well, so far the fruit is fresh and delectable. We have Cool Whip.
Right.
I'm getting down to the baked layer down at the bottom.
Yeah, I think, because I'll definitely make this again. Man, that's actually really good.
Kind of has a graham cracker
It does kind of have like a
kind of vibe to it. Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe it is supposed to be like this. I don't know. Maybe it's different in the center.
It's a little chewy because there's some, is it honey?
No.
I don't know what the sticky agent is in here. It's good though. So these green kiwi fruits in New Zealand, do they call these kiwis or do they call them something else?
I have no idea.
Neither do I.
So while you're enjoying that, does your family, whether it's your wife and your children, or whether it's something that you did with your parents growing up, do you guys have any specific family Christmas traditions that you at least try to do annually?
A big one, growing up, a big one my maternal grandmother would do, which we actually kind of tapped into for Thanksgiving this year. So my grandmother passed away earlier this year. She was in her mid-90s. She had a great run. Is for every year for Christmas, she would buy the big honey baked ham.
Oh yeah.
Like gift box. So it had the enormous ham, it had a turkey, and then it had a whole bunch of other smaller things that went with it. But the ham and the turkey were the centerpiece. The turkey was actually my favorite, believe it or not. And so she would send that to my mother and then my uncle, because there's just the two of them every year. And as she got older and my grandfather passed away, that tradition kind of fell off fell on the wayside. But for Thanksgiving this year, when we all got together to honor my grandmother, we did that big honey baked ham.
Oh, very nice.
So kind of a mix of the two holidays, but That was a big one. Like you, we were a military family, so we moved around a lot. So we couldn't always be with family every year.
Yeah.
We make do.
Yep. Yep.
How about you?
Every year, Christmas morning, before we open presents, usually we've had breakfast first, or a sort of an early brunch kind of deal. Before we open presents, my father recites from memory the Christmas story from the Bible. The King James Version, of course, because it's the best. And it is a good reminder of why we have the season that we do, and why we are all gathered together as a family. And typically the youngest, not always, has the Bible in hand to correct should there be any mistakes made. And my father is in his 70s, and very, very rarely has he ever made a mistake. It is usually, he might skip over a word like, the or something, but by and large, he has recited it from memory every year.
It's impressive.
That is something that we continue to this day.
I mean, the oral tradition is how
storytelling
I was going to say centuries. That's probably closer to millennia. How these stories were brought down. Not just biblical stories. I mean, all of them.
Yeah, but it is a good reminder of, pardon the expression, the reason for the season. But yeah, it's not the season of getting; it is the season of giving. So,
do you have a close second place as far as translations of the Bible?
Nope. There is the King James, and that is all. And that is all. Different strokes for different folks.
What about the original Hebrew and Greek?
If I knew how to read either of those, then perhaps those would be my favorite. But I don't know how to read them, so.
This is good. I probably sound like a heathen gnawing on it on microphone.
That is okay.
It's very good. Tell everybody what we have charged our glasses with.
Well.
Or am I getting ahead of you?
Normally,
Okay.
we would be drinking our Ariel Resupply coffee.
Oh, yeah.
But I could not find a dish from anybody that might be stationed in and around Scandinavia. So we have some mead that we are drinking in honor of any veteran or service member and their families that may be in Scandinavia.
Very nice.
So,
For those who don't know, what is mead made
primarily made of?
Yep.
Honey.
Honey.
It is fermented honey.
So, like most booze, at least in the European tradition anyway, excuse me, most of it was made because they didn't really have good drinking water. So,
Yes.
there's a whole bunch of different types and a whole lot of other traditions. But generally, mead, because of naturally the cold in Scandinavia, this gave them something to drink. And it's because, again, it's honey, it's very sweet, and it's very sugar and calorie dense, which can be something very important to have when you're dealing with that level of cold for that amount of time.
Oh, yeah. We could definitely go down a rabbit hole of the history of alcohol.
Yeah.
Like how the ancient Egyptians paid their workers in beer, and how...
I think we still do that on work sites now.
And how in Anglo-Saxon England, their beer, as we think of it, or their ale, wasn't... I mean, the reason that they drank so much of it was because the alcohol content was very low. It was basically the safest way to drink water. But we'll save that for maybe a special episode later down the line. But
With ale?
with ale,
Okay.
yeah, maybe we can find an ancient Anglo-Saxon recipe. But for our Nordic friends,
Prost.
skål.
Skull.
And now we're moving on.
Okay.
Now we are moving on to Spain.
España.
España.
Our biggest.
Our biggest overseas contingent.
Correct.
Yes. So, in Spain, in a part of Spain, Catalonia, I believe, or around Barcelona.
Is that part of Spain?
Yeah. Around Barcelona, they have a tradition called cagatillo. I couldn't believe this was a real thing. No offense to any of our listeners in Spain.
Our Castilian friends, yes.
Well, Castile is in a different part of Spain. But basically, you're going to see in stores or in people's homes, you're going to see a log that is either on 2 feet, which are basically sticks, or 4. And it's going to be dressed up with usually a Catalan hat or a bright red nose. Sometimes it'll have a jacket on, or the children will throw a blanket over it. And what they do is in the Advent season leading up to Christmas, they take candy and sweets and nuts and things, and they feed it to cagatillo. And then on Christmas morning, they beat the log with sticks until he defecates presents.
As one does. This is all coming from a weirdo in a Grinch sweater.
So, one, I thought that was hilarious. 2, I couldn't believe it was real, but then I actually looked it up, and I can order one for like $60. It's a complete cagatillo kit.
And it's on its way to the house from Catalonia, of course.
It's not, but
okay.
But there are other names for it that are more polite. But basically, it means poo log. The Christmas poo log. So I thought that was an interesting tradition that any service member or vet or service member's family in Spain might encounter.
We do have service members in Spain.
Yes.
So be on the lookout for the poo logs.
Yes.
And anybody listening to this who has children knows that all conversations eventually, if you go on long enough, end up in the toilet.
That's true. Thank you. It's true.
Thank you.
But also, while you're on the Iberian Peninsula, you're going to potentially see one of pretty much everybody's favorite things. And they're going to be deviled eggs, which actually...
People have strong opinions about deviled eggs.
Completely unrelated. Well, partially related. The oldest known recipe for deviled eggs is from Spain, from like the 1200s. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So...
People have very strong opinions about deviled eggs, which
yes,
always surprises me. But.
These are called huevos rellenos. Again, I probably butchered the pronunciation.
That's not the Barcelona pronunciation.
I don't know.
Okay.
But these are a Spanish version of deviled eggs. Now, if there's anything that I made that I'm most trepidatious about, it is these, because I love deviled eggs, but there's one particular ingredient for these that I'm not terribly fond of. There is a lot of seafood in the Spanish diet.
I know you lifted that lid off the top of it.
I am not a big seafood person. So yeah.
I feel like I'm being strangled by a squid right now.
Let's give it a go.
All right. I can honestly tell you this is the first time I've eaten eggs on camera before, so thank you for that.
The things I do for you.
Yes. What do you think?
It's not bad. It's not my favorite.
Agreed.
It is not made with mustard, which I'm a huge fan of.
Because the coloring it doesn't have the yellow in it. Yeah.
It's made with tuna and mayo and smoked paprika, pepper, and There's something else I'm leaving out.
An arsenic sauce.
No, but yeah, I'm not a huge fan of seafood, so I was worried about these. I actually wanted to try a different dish, which are stuffed shells. It's a soup with stuffed shells. Maybe next year. Should we choose to do
if you
this
keep
again?
me around that long, yes.
I've kept you around for this long. One more year shouldn't be a problem. But
Challenge accepted.
while we're thinking about this, there are a lot of Christmas tropes that you read about, that you hear about, that you see in movies or on TV and stuff. But one of them is somebody coming from a great distance away to be home just in time for Christmas.
Oh, you're talking about Hallmark movies, yes.
I mean, it's not just Hallmark movies, but yes. So, because tropes are based on real things, what is the longest distance that you have ever traveled to get home for Christmas? Or to be somewhere for Christmas? Not necessarily to get home, but to be somewhere for Christmas.
Does it count if it's over Christmas break? Or does it have to be for Christmas Day and or Christmas Eve?
No, that's fine. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I mean, that goes back to Grandma again. So most of our Christmases were in, southeastern North Carolina. And so every year, it was usually the week in between Christmas and New Year's. Mm-hmm. We would almost always go up to Central Ohio to go see Grandma. I'm good. I had my 2 deviled eggs. Now we wait and see what happens. Yeah, we would go up to Columbus every Christmas. Usually the day after Christmas, give or take a day. But that became a thing. And again, now that Grandma's no longer with us, I think it's kind of dawning on us, even now, that there's really no reason for us to travel up to Columbus anymore, like there had been for the last 40 something years. So
yeah,
it's bittersweet, but it's great memory.
Yeah, certainly is. And I mean, in Columbus, you're guaranteed for a white Christmas.
Well, it's certainly cold. You don't always get the snow, but it's definitely cold. Now you get up to Cleveland, that's a different story. So how about you?
This would have been in 2013, 2014. I was stationed at Fort Polk. And
Louisiana.
Yep. And I would have gone or come back here to Fayetteville for Christmas to see my parents, but they were going out west to Washington to see my brother, and I believe it was his fiancée at the time, who is now his wife. And so they were going out there. And so I didn't really have any plans. I was talking to an old Army buddy of mine from Germany, and he said, "Why don't you come to my place?" Which was around St. Cloud, Minnesota, which is due north of Louisiana.
Nobody goes to Minnesota in December on purpose.
I drove from Louisiana to Minnesota in about 14 or 15 hours. I drove straight there.
That's a haul.
It was. It was indeed.
It's not quite the southernmost to the northernmost part of the country, but for all intents and purposes, it's pretty close.
Yes. So I drove all the way there, and I ended up staying for several days. His family was very accommodating. He's still a good friend of mine, although he lives in Arizona now. And, that is the longest distance I have ever traveled for Christmas.
Is St. Cloud, Minnesota in late December colder than upstate New York?
No. Of course, that could be because I was more prepared.
Yeah.
So that could be it, but I'm going to go ahead and say no. Yeah. That is also where I went ice fishing for the first time.
How many Labatts did you drink before you went out on the ice? Because you're actually not allowed. It's a state law in Minnesota. You're not allowed to be sober when you ice fish.
Labatt's none. None.
Okay. It was Molson's.
No,
okay.
No Labatt's. Actually, I don't think it was Canadian at all. There was some local stuff that we had to go to this giant beer mart.
They have those in the upper
I
Midwest.
mean, they had like every kind of beer imaginable. But
Our friends in Minnesota and Wisconsin take their beer very seriously.
Yes, they do. So yeah, but that was an interesting experience.
Very cool.
Yeah, that was a long way. It was an even longer ride back, and I was doing this by myself. So, ooh, that was a haul. Wow. Yeah. All right, moving on. Next stop.
Speaking of frozen, very cold, unhospitable places.
Next stop, Russia.
Niet.
Russia is, for the most part, Russian Orthodox, which means that they are on the Julian calendar, which means that their Christmas does not come until the first week of January, the 6th or 7th, I believe. But for their Christmas, it has many of the same traditions that you will find everywhere else. And another odd one, or at least odd to us, is they have a fortune-telling tradition where this is for the unmarried, where single young men and young ladies will go and get their fortune told by an old woman.
That's not very orthodox.
Not so much. What's weirder still is the places that they tend to have these fortune tellings, which are usually in bathhouses or saunas. And they'll get their fortune told for,
I have a lot of comments that I'm keeping to myself.
Luck or love in the next year.
Yes,
whatever.
I shall keep these comments to myself.
But if you are in Russia for the holidays, you'll probably find some version of this potato salad. And I don't read or speak Cyrillic, so I have no idea what it's called. But each major region of Russia has their own version twist on it. So this is the one that I went with.
You don't read or write Cyrillic. That's exactly what a Russian spy would say.
That is exactly what a Russian spy would say.
Okay.
So
I'm going to use my plate that still has Cool Whip.
yes.
Okay. Here we go.
All right. So you can go first, by all means.
Thank you. Mm-hmm. This looks pretty standard for a potato
It has
salad.
potatoes, egg or hard-boiled eggs, ham, fresh peas, carrots, and onions. The carrots were boiled along with the potatoes. Did you know that boiled carrots smell like sweet potatoes when they're done?
They definitely sweeten up when you cook them, for sure.
Yeah. But and there's I believe onions in there as well. I made this one last night so that it would be nice and cold.
Okay. It's pretty standard
Yeah.
potato salad. It doesn't have a mustard back on it like a good southern one would. But.
Nope, no mustard. There was an option for fresh dill. You could sprinkle some fresh dill on here. Oh, there's pickles in here as well. Dill pickles. But there was an option for fresh dill, which I could not locate. And by this time, I was tired of going from store to store to buy different ingredients for different recipes. So I said, since it's optional, I'm opting out.
Well, you had a long night ahead of you of stealing all the Christmas presents and decorations from all the Who's in Whoville. Ahead of you, yes. Wow. This is pretty good, but
No.
all that aside, here at Tracer Burnout, we recognize the Gregorian calendar and Gregorian chants.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I take my chants. Gregorian or nothing.
But Also, in Russia, during their festive season, they have large processions of almost parade-like of carolers, where people will just come in off the street and they'll join the procession and they will sing carols. And I'm talking about, I'm sure there is probably some differences between the classic, Catholic or Protestant carols, and I'm sure there's a different version of, "O Holy Night" for Russian Orthodox. You know what? I'm not so sure. I'm assuming.
Who sings the best version of that song?
I don't know. It's not something I've ever really thought about. But while you're enjoying your potato salad, caroling.
Mm-hmm.
Are you pro caroling or against caroling? Whether it's you personally doing it or people coming to your door.
So here's my answer to that. I'm pro caroling in that I fully support other people doing it. I shall not be participating, but I'll be happy to stand there with my cup of joe from Mary Resupply Coffee and taking part in the festivities from a close distance.
Fair enough.
The tradition of caroling, as we understand it, comes from Victorian England. Well, they didn't invent singing, but caroling, as we understand. Although the Brits probably would try to take credit for inventing singing. That's pretty good. I got. Need some borscht and some vodka.
I think I will definitely make this again, but I will add more ham.
Honey baked ham?
Personally, I'm like you. I will not be taking part of any caroling myself. I do not mind people walking down the street and caroling, or coming to my doorstep and caroling either. I might even give them some hot cocoa or something. However,
here we go.
The pop music carol mashup nonsense is absurd, and I will go get my home defense mechanism to
from Bear Creek Arsenal
to chase people away. Look, just because you are a pseudo celebrity or you are in your 15 minutes of fame window does not mean that you should release a Christmas album.
You don't have one?
No. Christmas music is amazing, and just because you are the it thing of the moment doesn't mean that you have a wonderful singing voice. Auto-tune cannot correct everything. And then carolers going around and singing the god-awful version that whatever pseudo-star created is abominable. And I will immediately turn into the Grinch.
Well, your brain is full of spiders and you have garlic in your soul. So I think what Dan is telling us is that only certain people are allowed to celebrate Christmas. And rich, untalented hack celebrities are not among them.
Oscar de la Hoya,
who's not a hack,
was a tremendous boxer in his day. He put out a Christmas album. He may have even put out 2. Joe Pesci, believe it or not, in the late 90s, put out a rap album. Joe Pesci put out a rap album. I'm not kidding.
Well, he's Mr. Christmas. I mean, he's been in more Christmas movies than the two of us.
I mean, all that takes is 1.
He's been in twice the amount of... He was the leader of the Wet Bandits.
He's been in 3 then.
Yeah, what's the one I'm leaving out?
Home Alone 3?
Joe Pesci wasn't in that.
Was he not? Oh, I don't know. I never saw it.
God, everybody knows that.
Apparently not.
So, okay. I like the Russian. That's approved. I don't say "niet," I say "da."
Yep.
But the whole Julian calendar thing,
well,
can't get behind that.
They're not the only ones that celebrate or go off of the Julian calendar, which will become clear later.
Okay.
That is very good.
Pota-
I'm glad I made more of that than I originally
Potato
planned.
salad is approved. I'm going to set that over here.
Now, now we're off to Hungary,
Yes,
where both Roger and I have familial roots.
indeed.
My mother is a Hungarian immigrant. She came over here with her mother when she
Fleeing the
was-
Russians.
when she was 8 or 10, something like that. But yeah, she still goes over there on occasion. She and my dad and visits her cousins. But in Hungary, they have for their Christmas celebration, they have, again, I'm going to butcher the pronunciation, Miklaus, who is kind of like a Father Frost kind of figure. But what he does is he comes and kids will put their boots on their windowsill, and he will come and he will deliver treats and stuff in their boots, so that when they wake up, they can immediately go to eating candy.
This is a recurring theme in Central and Western Europe.
Yes. Now, accompanying Miklaus is his assistant. Can you guess his name?
Nicholas?
No. Krampus. Again,
Okay.
probably butchering the pronunciation.
You're getting it. I was going to bring this up eventually, but you got to it. Okay. All right.
And
Yep.
so what Krampus does is, while the good little boys and girls
No such thing.
are
No
getting
such thing.
their boots filled with candy and treats and things,
It's a myth.
he takes a bundle of birch sticks and beats the bad children. There is a specific name for the birch rod or birch bundle of sticks, but I wasn't even going to try and pronounce that one. But yeah,
Well, the Austrians and the Germans also have this
Yeah.
this fellow
Krampus.
very similarly named. Yeah.
yes. There's a lot of traditions throughout Europe about Santa Claus or Saint Nick having an assistant. One of which we will also get to later.
And who could forget the famous episode of The Office where it might even be several episodes, but one in particular where Dwight is doing the whole Felschnickel thing or whatever, which is kind of like a Krampus, sort of.
Yeah,
Yeah. Was it Dutch?
possibly.
All the Office nerds are going to be screaming at us.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes.
But-
Felschnickel.
There is a lot of amazing Hungarian cuisine out there, and kind of like in the States where we decorate our Christmas trees with lights and ornaments and candy canes. In Hungary, you will make salonzucker. Again, sorry about the pronunciation. But they are homemade candies, which I actually made a couple of years ago and gave some to you and your parents. And they will decorate their tree with the salonzucker, which then, of course, you take down and you eat.
Before the flies arrive. Yeah.
No, I don't think that they would really attract flies. Well,
Okay.
I mean, everything does eventually, I suppose. But yeah, so that's another interesting Hungarian tradition.
Excellent.
And while you are enjoying your feast in Hungary, you may come across paprikash.
Oh, yeah. This is a reasonable temperature now.
Which?
Here we go.
Of course. I made chicken paprikash. It can be made with beef,
Pretty much
or
any protein.
fish,
Yeah.
whatever. But I've already made my feelings clear about fish. So, also, if you would hand me another paper towel, please.
Of course.
This would traditionally be served on a type of noodle that I cannot pronounce, nor was I willing to try to make.
They're egg noodles, though, right?
Not entirely.
Okay.
Or potatoes, which my mom usually does, like mashed potatoes, but
Yeah.
these are kind of like an oven roasted potatoes. I really want to try those.
Yeah.
So I have a big bag of potatoes
Perfect.
for what's left over. So go ahead. There is chicken, and onions
Mix it around.
and green peppers and
lots of paprika.
lots of paprika. I thought it was an absurd amount of paprika. Don't get me wrong, I like paprika, but I did what the recipe called for. Yep. Onions, garlic, paprika, some flour to thicken up the sauce. You can also, if you would not mind reaching over there to get it, after you have a try of it, you can actually mix sour cream into the sauce to thicken it up further. I did not do that because you can also put it on the side.
Do you want it?
Yes, if you would not mind reaching over there.
I will go without. There's something I've learned serving overseas with Central and Eastern European allied militaries.
Yeah.
They put sour cream on everything. Everything. Everyone.
So, if you are an embassy guard in Budapest or passing through on your holiday travels while abroad, you might want to try yourself some paprikash.
So, I'm a big fan of chicken paprikash. I can't imagine eating this on fish.
I actually think this turned out really well.
I may have had it on pork before, but it's usually chicken. Yeah. Well done, sir. Your mother would be proud.
I think she would be. It's actually turned out really well. You know what? I'm not going to add the sour cream. This is amazing just like it is.
If I do say so myself.
So, since we don't have a tree to decorate in here, nor do we have any Salonzucker to put on it,
It's done.
Christmas decorations. Is there such a thing as too much?
So, that's very good. I'll finish it later. So, when it comes to, excuse me, when it comes to decorating my own house, and again, I have small children who have distinctly different opinions on this than me. I, myself, enjoy very, very, very traditional, kind of the American colonial style. So I like the very basic candle-like window lights in the windows. I like white lights. A couple pieces in the front yard with white lights. I like a very elegant tree, and we have virtually none of these things in my house. Again, I have young children. Although I do get to have my window lights. And the kids know that Dad's kind of crazy about the window lights, so they won't touch them. So I prefer it kind of elegant and basic and not tawdry, and I think gaudy is a good way to describe it. The neighborhood that we live in has some people who have taken it to 11, and I'm all for it. I love seeing other people's wild and crazy, tacky Christmas decorations. I want my house to be simple.
Fair enough. I agree. I think that there is a beauty in simplicity, and there is. We also, when I was a kid, had the window candle lights, and then the wreath on the door, the tree. My mom would buy each of us. Sometimes, not always, but my mom would buy, and she did this for a long, long time, and she's done it for my own children. She would buy a new ornament every year, and she would write our initials and the year that the ornament was purchased, and we would get that as a Christmas present that year, and then the next year we would put it up. So it's a lot of ornaments. There is absolutely such thing as too much.
Less is more.
In a lot of cases, yes. If you are trying to light up your house so that it can be seen from space, that is insanity. It in my opinion, it does look gaudy. Again, in my opinion, it becomes an eyesore. There is beauty in simplicity.
You're a bad banana with a greasy black peel. I agree with you. I just couldn't resist.
No.
Fair enough.
All right. Well, before we take our last stop on our international Christmas journey, I wanted to give some honorable mentions to some countries out there that have interesting traditions and also have some interesting Christmas cuisine that I may make in the future because it looked interesting, to say the least. Egypt is on the Coptic Orthodox calendar. It's like
the oldest Christian communities in the world.
It is a very small population of Egypt. It's about 15%. Is Coptic Christian. It's very, very small. But they are also on the Julian calendar. So that means that they do not celebrate until the first week of January. But they attend fairly long Christmas services, religious services, that sometimes will go on till 4 a.m. the next morning. And I appreciate their devotion, but I would be getting hungry and tired and cranky.
More so.
More so than normal, yes. But it's an interesting tradition that it would go on so long. Additionally,
I have something on Egypt before you move on.
Yeah.
Egypt is critically important in the nativity and in the true meaning of Christmas, in that Mary and Joseph had been living in Egypt during that period because they were trying to stay out of Dodge because of King Herod and the slaughter of the innocents. But when Caesar decreed the census, they had to return to the city of David, where Joseph was originally from, and the rest is history.
Yes.
So
because the government's going to make sure they get their taxes. Yep.
Government's going to government.
Yep. Belgium.
Not a real country.
Belgium had some amazing looking desserts that
they do that right.
Yeah. At the time of, we've got a couple weeks to go till Christmas. I think I'm going to go ahead and give them a go anyway, and then I'll just drop them off at your house as soon as your kids get home from school so that they can tear into it before you get home from work.
Krampus will be waiting for the airdrop, yes.
But a very interesting Spanish tradition, not unlike...
Belgian?
Belgian tradition, not unlike the Hungarian with Miklós and Krampus. They have Schwarzpiet, which is Black Peter, Black Pete, which in the last few years, due to certain things, has been changed to Sooty Pete, meaning like soot from the chimney.
Not Sooty, the Hindu ritual where a widow throws herself on a funeral pyre. Oh.
But
okay,
much like Krampus, Schwarzpiet he doesn't beat the kids. He snatches them up in a burlap sack and takes them to Spain. Which, if you know anything about the history of the Low Countries, yeah, kind of makes sense. You would take the bad kids to Spain. Canada
makes sense.
Canada has
also not a real country,
or at least Newfoundland, however they want to say it. Newfoundland has a tradition of mummering, which I'm not even going to try to explain because to me it's absurd. As far as special cuisine, I gifted them dinner rolls for Thanksgiving, so they can have that, and maybe next year some dinner rolls will show up on the Tracer Burnout Christmas special.
This is not the same thing as mummification, I presume.
Well, no.
Okay.
Or at least not that I read about.
Okay.
But mummering, interesting stuff. Look it up. They also have some very interesting traditions that they sort of adopted, co-opted from the Inuit people. So,
They're called First People now.
well, this is specifically from the Inuit tribe.
I understand.
Yeah, whatever.
We've gone around the bend on crazy. So,
Yes.
Yeah.
And another one that was pretty interesting was Mexico. Mexico has I can't remember how many days it was in a row, but the days leading up to Christmas, they have a party at somebody different, or a different person's house every night until they get to Christmas. And these are called posada parties. And you get together in a procession and you walk to the next house the next day. So it's the posada procession to the posada party. And I thought that was pretty cool. I think hosting it would be a nightmare, but I wouldn't mind being a guest. Plus, Mexican food is amazing.
Yes, doll.
Yeah. So those are some honorable mentions. There are plenty of others, and if you are a veteran, service member's family member, whatever you are abroad, check it out. Live a little bit with the culture. Yes, obviously your family traditions are important to you, but while you are abroad, or in a different place. Maybe you're from New York and you find yourself in Texas, or if you're in Louisiana and you find yourself in Minnesota. Traditions are different pretty much wherever you go.
Don't you know?
So go out and experience it. Try something new. The food will, for the most part, not disappoint.
Unless you're eating deviled eggs with tuna in it. Okay.
All right. Last stop.
The people that invented Christmas.
Well, no.
Many of our traditions.
They didn't invent Christmas, but these people love Christmas, and many of our traditions.
Most of our traditions
do come from there. We're going to Germany.
Deutschland.
Yep. And of course, I don't think there's any place on earth that does Christmas like Germany, with the Christmas markets and all the cookies and sweets, and everything is just so amazing. So amazing. But one of my favorites, and one of my parents' favorites, because they were stationed there just as I was born there, Stollen. Stollen. This I did not make. There was no way I was going to try this because I didn't want to mess it up. Stollen is like a fruitcake almost, but so many of them are a little different. Some of them have raisins, some of them have nuts and candy and
I
such.
like the cherry ones are my favorite.
But this one, it looks like dates and something else that I can't quite identify yet. But have at thee, sir, have at thee. But I do love Stollen.
I'm more of a Lebkuchen guy myself.
I do love Lebkuchen. I do love Lebkuchen. It's amazing, especially with coffee.
Well, both.
Well, because it's got the Lebkuchen has that wafer on the bottom that's that holds the consistency together and everything. And man, it's so good. Don't get in there for just, if you leave it in there too long, it's gonna crumble and fall apart. But man, it's so good, so good.
So the Germans get credit for inventing Christmas and almost ruining it for everybody. So there you go. The unpleasantness.
Is that what we're calling it now? Man, this one is kind of thicker, a bit heavier. It's still very, very good. It's got a lot more powdered sugar.
I'm all for klept.
It's got a lot more powdered sugar than I was expecting.
It's much more dense than the Cool Whip.
It's also not as sweet as some that I've had in the past.
I prefer them like this.
Yeah, it's got just the right amount of sweetness. It's not the sweetness of the bread and the fruit and the dusting of the powdered sugar on top. I'm being sarcastic when I say dusting. There's quite a bit. Makes it just sweet enough that you're not going to develop diabetes with one slice.
Sugarfoot. The amount of powdered sugar that is on the top of this thing is equivalent to whatever you would have at Fort Drum at Christmas time.
Well, that's not accurate, but...
Hashtag facts.
But we, of course, have to talk about Christmas movies.
Okay.
Do you have a favorite Christmas movie that you would sit down with your family and watch, either as a kid or now that you're a dad with your wife and kids? Is there one that you have a favorite to sit down and watch it with everybody?
So, yes. And this answer requires a little bit of nuance because I'm not saying that this is my favorite Christmas movie. I'm saying that it's my favorite Christmas movie that I love to sit and watch with the kids. So we understand the
Well, that was the question.
Okay, yeah. So, but again, it's not my favorite, and the answer to that would be Elf. If you've got kids, Elf is a really great one. Will Ferrell is a master thespian. Rest in peace, Bob Newhart and James Caan, by the way. Mm-hmm. What we were watching it the other day, and it kind of sank in. I was like, man, we lost both those guys.
Well, James Caan died
a couple years ago.
Oh, well, no, it's been longer than that. It's been close to a decade, I think. But Bob Newhart did just die.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Rest in peace.
Rest in peace to both of those fine gentlemen.
Mm-hmm.
But I was not a particularly big fan of Elf. It was okay. I think that Will Ferrell does better in movies where he is not the solo star.
Like Old School.
I think that he's better in a supporting role. That's just me personally. But
agreed.
Okay, so if that's your favorite one to watch with your kids, what is your favorite?
My favorite. I mean, are we taking it as read that it's Die Hard? Is that
sure?
Okay. Are we going to do least favorites?
We can, yeah.
Okay, we'll circle back to that. Favorite Christmas movie? I mean, of course, the correct answer is Die Hard. I'll tell you what, I'm going to go with Die Hard, but I may think of a second. But I'm going to
a second favorite.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you have a least favorite?
There's a Christmas movie that gives me the heebie-jeebies, which is a technical term. We're highly, highly technical here. It is a movie that just sits right in the uncanny valley. If you don't know what that is, look it up. It's the Polar Express. A masterful book. Loved it when I was a kid. Somebody decided along the way, let's make an animated kids movie out of this thing. And it just sits right there in that uncanny valley, and it makes me want to crawl into traffic when I watch it. Polar Express.
Okay.
And I mean that with all due respect.
Okay. Fair. All right. So I was not around my kids terribly much when they were young, through unforeseen and
the unpleasantness.
Yes, the great unpleasantness. But when my son did come to live with me, he and I would watch Die Hard. And it was the TV version, so the profanity was taken out.
Buttercup.
But my son is also the one, well, he and I together, really. This would have been when he was, 12 or 13. Figured out why Die Hard is a Christmas movie. Because there is the familial element. He's traveling a long way to fix a problem and to be with
There's a redemption arc?
Yes, the redemption arc. And obviously, Hans Gruber is the unrepentant Grinch who is trying to ruin everybody's Christmas through, abduction, murder, kidnapping, extortion, those sort of things. He's trying to ruin everybody's Christmas. And John McClane
Saint John McClane
is the most badass Susie Lou
who is no more than 2.
who is no more than 2. And he's saving Christmas just the way that she did.
It sounds to me like what you're saying is that it ain't Christmas until Hans Gruber is tossed off the top of Mount Crumpet.
So that is my favorite Christmas movie. However, honorable mentions go to Christmas with the Cranks with Tim Allen and Jamie Lee Curtis.
That's my...
Because I don't know what it is about that. One, Tim Allen is funny, and Jamie Lee Curtis will always be the lady of the night with a heart of gold from Trading Places, which is probably debatable whether that's a Christmas movie or not.
Christmas with the Cranks is my second least worst favorite
really?
movie.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. I do enjoy that one. I don't know why. It's just if it comes on TV, I'll leave it on. I'll go about my business and continue doing whatever.
You'll go about doing your baking.
Yeah, but it's I enjoy it. It is pleasant.
If you insist. Yeah. I do like Marty though. That character in that movie.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Oh, Dan Aykroyd is in the movie also.
Unfortunately, yes.
What is the one with? Is it Jingle All the Way?
Jingle All the Way is the
Sinbad,
Arnold Schwarzenegger and Sinbad. Yeah.
No, that one does not put me in the holiday spirit. That one makes me angry.
Does Rambo count?
As a Christmas movie?
It's fun. So it's if you look on the web, you'll see it. There's a still shot of him and Stallone and Brian Dennehy, in the police office. They're talking, and you see it like through Stallone, like over his shoulder, and the very, 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 very back. There's like a small desk-sized Christmas tree in the back, and people will like circle it in bright red and say, "See, it's a Christmas movie." Does that count?
Does Trading Places count? It concludes over Christmas time.
Fair enough.
I mean, I'd say there's more of an argument for Trading Places. But if it's your thing, sure. Yeah, I suppose Rambo can count.
What? However, you have to explain it away to yourself.
Yes.
Okay.
But unless you've got something else.
Yeah, let's do some music. So, what is your favorite traditional and contemporary Christmas song? And we're defining traditional as something that you can find in a hymnal. So.
Silent Night.
Okay.
Hands down. Silent Night.
Stille Nacht.
Silent Night. If I had to pick, oh man, there are so many good ones. O Little Town of Bethlehem is great. O Holy Night is good, but Silent Night is my favorite.
Yeah.
As for contemporary, none.
I don't want a lot for Christmas.
You're a bad person.
I am a bad person.
No, there is no good contemporary Christmas music, in my humble opinion.
Do you have a particular version of Silent Night that you like?
What do you mean? Like being sung by a single person or sung by a choir?
Whatever you want.
I heard a version. I can't remember where I was. I was over at somebody's house, I think, for a Christmas party, and they had all the traditional Christmas songs, but it was sung by a children's choir, and I thought that was really beautiful.
Yeah,
so
it's very that's very German too.
They were Anglican, so
the Anglicans and the Germans do that a lot. So
yeah,
the Germans. Yeah.
But I thought that was a really beautiful version. But I mean, no, I don't have a particular favorite way to be for it to be sung, as long as it's in the traditional sense and it's not some overrated pop star of the moment.
I have a long list of these, so I'll keep it short. I love the Mercy Me, which is a contemporary Christian band. They do a really great It's really, I mean, it's an adaptation because it's a Longfellow poem. I Heard the Bells on Christmas Day. They do a really amazing, I mean, I guess you would call it rock, but it has a children's choir doing backing vocals in the background. It's very, very, very moving, especially if you know the history behind that poem when it was written. Longfellow's son had been grievously wounded in the Civil War. His wife died young, and so he thought he was losing his son, and he wrote that poem.
Yep.
Yeah. It's powerful.
Yep.
So that's a good one. There's another Christian band. I don't know a whole lot about the band. They're called, I want to say it's Cloverton. Cloverton, not Cloverfield, the Alien movie. I believe it's Cloverton, and they do a Christmas song that's to the tune of Hallelujah by Cohen, and you can find it on YouTube. It's easy enough, but it's about the nativity and all that stuff. It's really, really powerful. It's very good. That's a good one. There's a whole bunch of stuff you can find on YouTube that are the flash. There's one in particular I think of, but there's a bunch that are kind of like the flash, like a flash mob where people sing, where they all show up in one place. It's pre-planned.
I didn't know that was a thing. I've seen the dancing and stuff.
So like it's like that, but it's singing instead of dancing.
And they do this with Christmas music?
So there's a few, and there's one in particular where these people all meet, pre-planned, of course, in like a food court in a shopping mall. This video is like 15 years old. It's not recent, but they all start singing the Hallelujah chorus, which is technically an Easter song, not a Christmas song. But this one's done around Christmas time. That one's really great. Mannheim Steamroller just has many, many albums, so we're not going to list all of the songs, but most of the Mannheim Steamroller stuff is good. I'm not a big fan of Trans-Siberian. I think they're pretty overrated, to be honest. But they have a few good things. My favorite version of Oh Holy Night, believe it or not, is Celine Dion. Yes, I said it. That woman can sing, boy. Oh Holy Night.
Or she could sing.
Yeah, she's not in good health. Very sad. Very sad. But Celine kills it. Yeah, she's got it. So
I've seen her in concert.
I always knew you were soft on the French Canadians. I knew it.
The tickets were free, and I was in Vegas.
Here comes the Cope, ladies and gentlemen.
She put on a hell of a show.
She did Vegas for a long time.
This would have been in, 2006. Something like that. Yeah. I saw a bunch of people. I got free tickets to a lot of shows.
So traditional. I'm also a Silent Night fan. To be super pretentious, I do like Auf Deutsch. I like the Stille Nacht version when it's done that way. But yeah, a lot of great Christmas music. I'm not big into the contemporary stuff. I think you and I are both traditionalists. I love Bing Crosby doing "I'll Be Home for Christmas." Oh, yeah. That one will hit you in the feels too.
Or White Christmas.
Yeah. But "I'll Be Home for Christmas" was written and it was during World War II. And if you listen to a lot of people listen to the song and don't even really actually know what it's about, but just imagine boys listening to that in the Battle of the Bulge and foxholes, because that's really what was happening when that song was written.
Yeah, it's
very, very powerful.
It's not about "I'll be home for Christmas."
Yeah.
The next part is "If Only in My Dreams," because they don't know if they're going to come home.
Yeah.
So. Yeah.
So kind of capturing that in a snapshot in time in the 40s when that was written. So that's all I got. I could probably go on. I'll stop.
Oh yeah,
a lot of great stuff.
Yeah. A lot of great stuff. But that will conclude our international Christmas journey. So wherever you are, you can enjoy the local celebration, because in a lot of places it does vary from region to region. Like in Spain, there are many different traditions. In Germany, there are many different traditions. Enjoy the cuisine. Get out of your comfort zone and get out of the norm, and try to enjoy your Christmas season abroad. In a different way. Maybe you'll bring home a new tradition of your own.
And if rare roast beast is a feast you can't stand in the least, try to choke it down and do it with a smile on your face.
And before we say
Fröhliche Weihnachten.
Good night. We would like to close with a couple of Christmas messages. So
Jesus is the reason for the season. We understand that not everybody that partakes in this show is a believer, and that is certainly you're right. But I don't know where I'd be at this point without my faith, and so this is that time of year where we really kind of bring it home. That's kind of where it all begins. So just thankful for all that. I'm thankful for family. Thankful for you, believe it or not, even in your hideous green sweater. Christmas is a special time. I know for a lot of military veterans, I'll include myself in this. It can be kind of a bittersweet season. There's a lot of people get the Christmas blues. Sometimes I'm one of them.
Yep.
So I don't know if I'm stealing any of your thunder on this, but just make sure you stay in touch with your buddies. Send them Christmas cards, give them calls, send them funny memes. Just do whatever you need to do to stay connected. A lot of people can get real down and start isolating themselves during this time of the season. The time of year, I should say.
Yep.
So just make sure you're staying up with your people.
Yeah. And if you're feeling a little bit down in the dumps yourself, you can always reach out to the crisis line, which will be linked in the description. And if for the video watchers, then it will be on the screen as I'm speaking. And remember that this is the season of giving, not the season of getting. So it's always great to get stuff, but there are people who could use some stuff. So find a way to give back.
Yeah.
To your community in particular.
Yeah.
Whether it's donating blood, whether it's giving to a charity, whether it's donating money to the poor box at your church, or taking all those old clothes and shoes maybe your kids have outgrown or you've outgrown or just aren't really in style anymore, take them to a shelter. Take them to a donation box, a thrift store. Find some way. Yep. Find some way to give back.
Yeah, well said.
So that'll do it from us here at Tracer Burnout. Yeah. It's been an amazing year, and you'll hear from us again in a few weeks.
Fröhliche Weihnachten, Maligayang Pasko, Joyeux Noel, Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
And Happy New Year. We'll see you next year.